start it again so that it doesn't stop in the middle of this part.
So since you made an app, out of curiosity, was a decent bit of the financial strain getting the resources together to build it, or did your engineer friend just be like, oh, no problem, I can do it?
Yeah, I wish it were that simple. So my co-founder was a computer engineer, but he wasn't proficient in iOS, which is the language for iPhones, or Java, which is the language for Android. So that was a big hole that we had to fill. We're like, shit, if we're building a mobile app, we need somebody to build it.
Right.
So I had a friend who worked for the government as a software engineer, and he was teaching himself iOS on the side. So I went to him and said, Mike, we have an idea. I can't pay you anything. You're gonna have to work like a dog on nights and weekends to build this for us. It might fail, but in return, we'll give you a percentage of equity in the company. And I really believe this can be something, and I think you can be part of something special. And thank God he agreed to do that. So he became kind of our part-time engineer to build the app, whereas Federico knew enough about database architecture to build the back end. Because when you have a mobile digital company, you need both the database, or the back end, and the front end. The back end kind of houses all of your data and allows the app to work. The front end is what the user interface is and all that stuff. So you need both pieces, and it's very challenging to find people to do that. So Mike didn't know, he knew iOS and he was incredible at it, but he didn't know Java for Android. So when we got the University of Maryland contract, we didn't have a product. I basically lied and said, we have it, and you should sign with us because it's gonna be great. And they said, okay. And then we're like, oh shit, the season starts in 8 weeks and we don't have a product, we gotta figure this out. So I went to campus and found some college students who said that they knew Java, and I paid them $5,000, and I rode those two poor kids into the ground for 8 weeks for them to build this. I mean, it's literally going to their fraternity house and waking them up and being like, I need you to code right now. So you do what you gotta do kind of in the early days, and you just figure it out, but that's what we did. All right, so I'm gonna go for the phases of a startup, and this is gonna be very let's move down focus. I'm gonna kind of really get into how it started and show some pictures about the life cycle and probably cry a little bit. But the first phase is the idea phase. Like who has an idea that they think would be awesome? I won't ask you for it, I won't embarrass you. But yeah, I mean, we all have ideas that we think are gonna be cool and revolutionary. And the key is taking that idea and actually putting pen to paper. And I think that's what separates 99% of the people from the 1% that actually goes further. For years, and I'm not special, I mean, I was one of those guys that would always have ideas and think my ideas were awesome, and I never do anything about them, and that made me feel good for a while until it drove me crazy and finally made me push myself further. So while I was in business school, Federico and I were always trying to scheme. We called it scheming because it sounded cooler. We tried to do an incubator, that didn't get off the ground. We were looking to invest in real estate, that didn't get off the ground. We were looking to do this and that. And finally, he's a big Yankees fan, and the Yankees had just opened their new stadium, and there was a game on TV, and he noticed on TV that these $5,000 luxury seats right behind home plate were empty on TV. And he thought, why is that true? This is opening day at a brand new stadium. Clearly these tickets have been sold, but nobody's sitting in them. That's ridiculous. I would pay $200 to sit in those seats at the game. And we're like, whoa. Like iPhones were just kind of in their infancy. BlackBerries were still predominantly the technology of choice. This was in 2010. So we thought, holy shit, like maybe there's a whole infrastructure that you can make in the game to capitalize on these no-show seats of people that had tickets but didn't show up, to allow people in the nosebleeds to move down for an incremental price. Like, whoa. Like, so that kind of got us excited and thought that, like, oh my gosh, like this idea could be something cool because people would do that. And you know, we test marketed it amongst other people, and they're like, yeah, definitely I would do that. So we thought we were onto something. So we had the idea. Now the problem was like, okay, what do we do with this thing? Do we want to be those guys that talk about it for a while, or do we actually want to do something about it? And we decided to be the latter category. So I cold called the University of Maryland, which is where we're at grad school, ticketing department. I said, hey, I'm a student here. You need to meet with me because I pay tuition. We have an idea we want to share. I didn't think the meeting would amount to anything. I thought he would brush it aside. But we met and we pitched this idea, just like I pitched it to you. And he's like, whoa, like that would be awesome. Like I could see that as revenue generating for our stadium. Our big problem is on national televised games, we have all these empty seats that are shown on TV that like our alumni hate because it looks like our arena is packed and, you know, raving fans all over the place. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So Federico and I were like, oh my God, like, is it really this easy? Like, you just pitch an idea to a client and you get a client and now you're on your way? Like, maybe all the stories I read were true. So in 2010, I was still working at Capital Store. Some nights and weekends we put together like a business plan for the University of Maryland where we made them buy like all this hardware, and it was like $1 million proposal. It was completely, like, we had no idea what the hell we were doing. And we pitched it to Maryland and they passed on it. Like, despite everything that I thought was gonna go our way and all the great feedback we had from their team, the athletic director said, too much of a risk, not gonna do it. And like, my heart just exploded at the time because I thought that was our big break, and it clearly wasn't. So we reverted to being those guys again where we're like, nobody wants to do this. This is too hard, let's shelve it. So literally we put it on ice, and I get drunk every so often and just like, Fed, we could have been there, man. Like, we had the idea, like, what are we doing? We just dropped it. And that went on for 18 months until 2011. I just had enough of my company, and I called up Federico and said, screw it, I'm quitting my job. Like, we gotta figure this out. Like, I can't just get drunk and talk about how great this idea is gonna be. So I quit my 6-figure comfortable job to try to build this company with no clients, no resources, no technology, no nothing. And I kind of went in the deep end and tried to figure it out. So that was our idea stage. You can go to the next slide. This is actually the first email about Let's Move Down. I don't know if you can read it, but I was looking through my archives. I was like, wow, this is really cool. So the date's January 2010, and this is Federico and I just emailing each other back and forth at work, discussing, what this company would be, and we're even discussing the name. He says, Let's Move Down, or Better Seats with the Z. Luckily, we chose Let's Move Down. It's clearly a better name. But that's just kind of like the idea stage that I'm sure all of us have gone through in this room, and just kind of the energy that anything is possible, that this stupid little idea could be $1 billion industry, because who knows? Who knows what can happen? It's usually the best stage about starting a company because anything's possible. Moving on, okay, you got your idea. I didn't have a client, and we needed a product. So I kind of already talked about this, but we needed somebody to build this thing, because if you have a mobile app that actually has a business model where we were taking a percentage of everything that was bought or sold, we needed a payment system, we needed security because we were taking people's credit card information, we needed our servers hosted somewhere because, theoretically people were going to be using this a lot during a game and our servers could overload, so we needed a solution for that. We needed Android and iOS because everybody had to be a part of it. We needed scanning to scan barcodes and take pictures of tickets. We needed a whole bunch of stuff, and we didn't know where to start. So this is the product phase where it's basically pen to paper and anything's possible. And I know you guys learned about like lean methodology and all that stuff, and that's kind of what we were. We were just trying to build stuff incredibly fast, get it out to people to look at, get feedback, break it, build it again until we found something that we were comfortable with. So this was a pretty cool stage too. I mean, I gotta say that this was probably like month 4 of me quitting my job, so I was starting to get very nervous because I was running out of money and we still didn't have a client, and I didn't know what was gonna happen. So like the stress of like, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have just quit my job like that because I was stupid, but that kind of got me into the water and it was sink or swim. So I don't know, I kind of debate back and forth on that. If I were in your shoes, I'd probably try to advance further while you had a steady stream of income or while you're in college, and then maybe just jump in full force. But whatever, to each their own. So the next slide is actually us at the Den building Let's Move Down. So Mike is on the left, he was our Chief Technology Officer. I'm in the middle. Oliver, who helped us on sales, is in the back. And this is what we did every day, every night for a couple months while we tried to actually build a beta product for this to showcase to a customer to get somebody to sign on to go down our journey. So next slide is, that's where the beer's involved. So a lot of this was late nights, eating peanuts and surviving on very cheap stuff. So I think the one on the left, we're up till 2 a.m. trying to figure out, I think, mobile payments, because that still wasn't really good technology. There wasn't Braintree or Stripe. So we settled on this Israeli company called Zeus, which didn't have an American client at the time. So I called them up and said, hey, we're trying to build this product. We need mobile payments. We need you to customize this for us. And they did, because they wanted to get into the American market. And now Zeus raised like $30 million and they're going on their way. So I like to say that we led that to that, which we probably didn't. And then on the right, like when you're building a product, you also need to build a brand. So that's me looking like a douche with my Let's Move Down t-shirt and my cup and my first business card and a flyer that we passed out at the University of Maryland. So, not only do you have to think of the product, but you have to think of a brand that resonates with people, that will really capture them. You also have to build a website, which, I couldn't let Mike or Federico waste their time on building a website because that wasn't really a value add. We were a mobile product. So I learned HTML and did it myself because I wasn't going to pay someone to do it, and I didn't want them to do it. So you roll up your sleeves, and I learned how to put together a terrible website on Shewmon. What's up?
So I'm kind of curious because myself and I guess Federico and a bunch of other people in the class too are kind of in a unique position where they have the technical ability.
Are you an engineer?
Yeah, I'm a computer scientist.
Sweet.
Where they have the technical ability to work on the product itself, but if they're the founder, then they should be focusing on like planning and whatnot. Was there kind of like a downside to that, the fact that some people had to think about both technology and actually building the product and building the business?
Yeah, I felt inadequate. I was a finance guy, and when you look at like a technology company, I was worthless. Like I didn't know how to code, and the whole point of having a technology company is building something. So I was kind of like the black sheep between Federico and Mike because they were actually doing something that I could see tangible value at. So I had to figure out, okay, what do I do? So I kind of took the reins on the business plan, the business model, sales, marketing, customer service, everything else kind of fell under my purview, and I freed them to do what they do because finding a technologist is incredibly expensive, and every hour that they didn't spend coding was a waste for us. So I think that's how we figured it out, and if any of you guys can learn to code, do it. Like, not only is it a great career path if you don't become an entrepreneur, but it's just a skill that you need. And kudos to you for figuring that out. I did not, but we made it work.
Okay, so I mean, like, if I were to do this, my partner then would be more the opposite of me.
Yeah, I mean,
like a business. I mean, not that I'm not businessy, but
I think yin and yang is great. Like Federico and I, our personalities are completely different. He was an engineer, he was a New Yorker, he was an asshole, like very candid. I'm more like Midwestern, like friendly, like, try to come up with solutions. And we drove each other crazy, but it just worked. It was just like he was very good at organization. He was very good at technology. I was very good at inspiring people and recruiting people and, doing financials and all that other stuff. So it complemented each other. So I think when you're looking to build a team, don't find people exactly like you because I think you're just going to fall short, and then you can have more of like that groupthink mentality where you guys think that this path is the right way because you agree on everything and you go down it, it's wrong. Whereas I would throw out an idea and Federico would just automatically shit on it because that's just his personality. It drove me crazy, but ultimately it got us to where we needed to go. Yep.
Are you guys still friends?
We're like best friends.
who threw the first punch? I know that's like not relevant.
I did.
I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I told my wife, like, as I was going through it, I was like, I could never work with this guy again. Like, this is the worst. Like, and then when we were done and the dust settled, like, I'm like, I actually need him. I need somebody like this. And just because we might not see eye to eye business-wise, like, I respect him, he's smart, and he pushed me to be better. And now when we're not in, like, the powder keg of a startup, like, we're best friends. Like, I talk to him once a week, and we're still thinking about what's next, and it's been great. There's been some challenging moments. So this is actually a video, and if you go down, you should be able to play. So this is the first version of Let's Move Down. This was 2012. Don't make fun of it. I love this, but this is how the product actually works. So if you just push play. Should be embedded. I was testing it last night, so hopefully it works. So if you, that play button, yeah, there you go. So we did these demos for schools as it went on. I won't narrate.
Is there supposed to be sound?
There's no sound.
Okay.
We didn't have money to do sound.
All right.
So basically you can find better seats during the game. They're priced based on what time of the game it was. The price decreases as the game goes on. And then we added like coupons and fan experience passes and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Out of curiosity, what program did you guys use to make that little visual? Because that's not the actual version of the program.
Oh, it is.
Oh, it is? Okay.
This was a mirrored, we would use the app and did a transaction and then it showed up on the video. And then we would show that to teams to be like, this is how it works.
Gotcha.
So you get a new ticket on your phone, you can authenticate it by tapping 3 times on the phone and a check mark would appear so you can't take a picture of it, and that's how fast it was to upgrade your seat during the game. You showed the usher, you moved down, you had the greatest time ever. So that was version 1, and that's what all that hard work kind of turned into. So we had this product, and now what? And then, as you saw on the next slide, it's the customer. And this is like the needle in the haystack. We actually had a customer before we had the product, like I said, because I lied out my ass and said that we had what you just saw before we ever did. And in 2012, I reached back out to the University of Maryland because I felt we were at least in a better position to have a tangible product, and we fixed a lot of the problems that we had. We got another meeting with them, and it was probably the most nervous I've ever been in my life, because this was it. Like, if they passed on us, I didn't know where to go next. And we were already, 6 months in without any salary. I was bleeding money. Like, I was looking for jobs on the side because I'm like, crap, if they say no, like, I gotta get a job. Like, I can't just keep playing entrepreneur forever. So like, all the marbles were on the table at this meeting, and we pitched our ass off, and they said yes on the spot. And I was so shocked. I was speechless. I was like, so you, like, that means yes? Like, what? And they're like, yeah, like, we want to do this. And that was the happiest outside of my son being born and my wedding, which I have to say, that was the happiest I've ever been in my life. Like, Federico and I left that meeting, and we were like giddy little girls, like hugging each other in the parking lot. And it did not get better than that. And I think it was just a culmination of, like, this was 2012. The idea started in 2010. That was 2 years for us to get to this point. We had sacrificed so much and lost income and savings that I didn't really care if this worked at this point. Like, we at least did it. Like, I did what I didn't think was possible. So the point of the customer is, like, you have to find that first person that believes in you and believes with what you're trying to sell, because you're a nobody. Nobody cares who you are. It doesn't matter if it's the greatest idea in the world. You're a nobody. Like, why would somebody want to risk their job on going with a technology that might not work? If you think about sports, like, they're not innovative. They have monopolies in their market. Like, the people that work at sports teams aren't paid to take risks that could turn out bad. They're paid to do the status quo. So for somebody to kind of give you a shot for technology that could fail miserably is a very hard thing to do. When you think about your products, like, you've got to find that one evangelist that believes in what you're trying to do and works with you. And that's what Maryland did for us. I mean, we tried so much crazy stuff that first year in terms of promotional stuff and trying new things with coupons and allowing season ticket holders to sell their tickets. They couldn't come to games by sending them a push message like 5 minutes before. If they pushed a button, their tickets would automatically be on our site. Really cool stuff like that violated the StubHub agreement entirely, but they didn't care. So that was great for us. So the next slide is the email that I wrote to one of our advisors, basically saying that we got Maryland, which you don't need to read all of it, but it was really cool, and I was very happy that day. So then it was kind of like, we had our customer. We had 8 weeks to build a product before the basketball season started. We didn't know if the signal would work in the basketball arena because there's 18,000 people using their cell phones simultaneously, and this was 2012. So we're like, oh my God, if we build this product and no one can use it, that's gonna suck. So we had all these challenges that we had to overcome. We went to the Midnight Madness, and we were doing site surveys about the signal around the entire arena for 4 hours just to see what the test results were. And we lied about those because they weren't good. And Maryland wanted to know whether or not this could be supported. And we're like, yeah, the data's fine, it'll be great. And luckily, like, it was good enough. I mean, it could have been better, but every year they improved it. But you do what you gotta do. Like, I'm proud of that. It's whatever. The next stage is financing, and I talked about kind of the financial struggles, but as you're growing a company, you have a customer, you have a product, you gotta figure out, how do I fund this? And you can fund it in a variety of ways, of which we pretty much did all of. You can bootstrap, which is what I said, so we used our savings to pretty much pay for Mike, to pay for the college kids, to pay for AWS servers, to pay for whatever we needed to pay, kind of came out of our savings. You can have a business model associated with your company, so you can use the revenues that your company generates to pay for your business, which we also did, because we had a business model on day one where anyone who bought a ticket drove money back to our site or to our company, which we then used to pay for developers and all that stuff. You can hit up your friends and family, which we also did. I was very adamant about hitting up my grandparents to support our cause, which after a lot of negotiation worked. Or you can raise outside investor or outside money from angel investors or venture capitalists, which we also did. We raised a $25,000 convertible note, which was good because we were kind of at that stage where we were bootstrapping, we had revenue coming in, and we had 100% of our equity structure. So I'm not gonna lie, like, a lot of, we